So we're going to start with professional marks. The thing is that starting from September 2022, the structure of the exam has changed, and now 20 out of 100 marks are professional. And that can be scary, but not if you know what to do. Well, actually, there were professional marks before, but they were hidden in the exam. So you wouldn't get marks for your technical thoughts if your answer would not comply with certain criteria. And students were very disappointed because they were like, I know the topic, how come I don't have enough marks to pass the exam? And that is because they didn't follow the approach that was kind of implied. But now the approach is written there, so it's known to everybody, and you will get additional. They were not additional, but you will get like 20 marks, and that would be given for your ability to show your professionalism. And these 20 marks will be scored while you are answering your technical marks. So now it's a little bit easy on one hand, because sometimes when you write one sentence, you get one technical and one professional marks. However, it is also harder because you need to know how to score those professional marks. Professional marks will be awarded in 4 categories. That's communication, analysis and evaluation, skepticism, and commercial knowledge. And below your question, you will see what are you given the marks for. Sometimes it can be 4 parts of this professional marks list. Sometimes it can be just communication and skepticism, for example. So please pay attention to. And as for the distribution of professional marks between the tasks, you will be given 10 marks for question A. So question A will be 40 technical marks for your knowledge, for your APM knowledge, and 10 professional marks. And each of the other 2 questions will bring you 5 professional marks. So marks for communication, you get them for being able to communicate your thought, because it is very important for you as a professional to be able to explain. You will be given the marks for report format and structure. I will tell you a little bit later how to make the report so that you can get 4 marks just for writing the right header, the right conclusion, and the right subheadings. What is important is that the subheadings which you will have in your report will be more detailed than your question. And we will talk about that. We will have an extra session which would be devoted to how you answer question A. You will get marks for complying with style, language, and for being clear on what you are explaining. So you need to apply appropriate tone of the response. This means that you cannot use I, you cannot use we, you cannot use us. So this should be a report, so it should be about them, they, the company, and so on. You will get your professional marks for the way you provide calculations. So the rule is, if your calculations are complex, they are supposed to be made in your spreadsheet, not in your text file. And in your text file, you will refer to the spreadsheet where you will have the calculations. And again, we will see that, well, we will look at in detail at question A. Appropriate use of computer-based exam tools. So before, when you had to calculate NPV, you would make that lengthy table. But now what you will need to do, you will need to write the NPV formula. So it's important for you to know the formulas that are there. And it is important for you to be able to use the formula. So that, for example, you use the sum formula instead of writing 2 classes when you want to summarize a table of 3 lines. And that is what you are given marks for, so you have to do that. Or, for example, if we talk internal rate of return, Before, you had to remember a complex formula, but now, if you make this formula, if you use the formula, then you will not get marks because you're supposed to open your spreadsheet, you are supposed to make a table where you are going to enter the numbers that you are going to use, like NPV at low interest rate, NPV at high interest rate, higher interest rate, lower interest rate, and then that is what you were supposed to do before, right? But now you will just have your flow of cash flows and outflows, and you will use the formula to calculate the error to get your professional mark. Your explanations should be easy to follow and understand. This means that you start with more important parts, with stronger arguments at first, and then the last important go at the back, in the back or in the end of your answer. So more important first. And that is very important. Well, for example, when you talk about the report and you say what is good or bad about that, you can notice that, for example, the roundings are not okay. For example, that is a report that is made in dollars, whereas there are so many numbers in so many digits in the number. So it would be beneficial to use that number rounded to thousand or to millions. But that is not what is the most important fault of the report. So if you mention that in the first part of your answer, then you will not get the marks for easy following and understanding. And try not to blame. And this is a problem with many students, that they say, it seems like managers want to manipulate and they created fraud and so on. No, if you do not know that, then you do not imply on that. They say that, they had a mistake, maybe they misread, maybe they do not know, and so on. So you do not blame people. Your communication is supposed to be effective. Effective means that it reaches the goals, the aims that are set. And this means that the content of your report is relevant to the scenario. So your headers and subheaders, they relate to what is asked. And also the number of suggestions is the same as per requirement. So if the requirement asks you to provide 3 metrics, and you provide 4, you will not get extra marks. You will lose that mark on communication, and that is very important. And also you will lose your time. And to make sure that you score marks for communication, and also to make sure that you earn your technical marks, you need to make sure that you explain and not just state. And to explain, you use longer sentences, and you use so special words such as because, as such, therefore, and so. For example, if we talk about IFRS report, and if we talk about whether it is useful or not useful for the managers of the company to assess company's performance, you will say something like the report contains only financial metrics, and for that you will not get marks. And if you say the report should include non-financial metrics, you will not get marks. But if you say that the report contains only financial metrics, but financial metrics show only the result and they do not show why the result has happened, for example, why the revenue decreased, therefore the report does not give the right information to the users. For that explanation, where you have because, therefore, so, as such, you will get both your technical marks and your professional marks. Another part of professional marks is analysis and evaluation. And it is important that you use the data that is given to you in Appendix 1. So basically all the numbers, or almost all the numbers that are given to you, they need to be used. And you need to be able to tag them and to make your calculations. So, for example, when you calculate return on capital employed, you get a technical mark for being able to provide a calculation, and also you get a professional mark to be able to use that information, so for your ability to provide analysis and evaluation. Also, you need to be able to discuss that the performance report that is given actually relates to the mission and objectives. And we will look into that when we will study how to answer question A. So please watch that video lecture very carefully, because so many professional marks are hidden in there. It means that you need to look at the company and see what's most important to company, and look at the performance metrics that are given, and you need to be able to explain why these metrics are okay for the company to measure those most important aspects of the company's performance, or why they are not okay. Your argument is supposed to be balanced and reasoned. Well, it looks a little bit like communication, and yes, it sometimes may be as communicational marks, or sometimes that the same sentence will bring you marks for analysis and evaluation. So important is that you explain, because therefore, as such, so that is why. Unbalanced means that if you're asked to provide benefits and drawbacks, this means that you have appropriate number of benefits and appropriate number of drawbacks. So you need to read carefully that scenario to make sure that you see all the parts of the question, and your answer actually answers all parts of the question. And if you do not do that, then you both lose technical marks and you both lose professional marks. If you use words such as much greater than, slightly greater, or only slightly below something, then you show your ability not to only look at numbers, but also look at the magnitude of numbers. And this is very important. Like, let's say, net present value. When net present value is only slightly higher than 0 compared to the level of investment, then you would say that, well, actually, the NPV is positive, but it's only slightly positive. And if some of the variables change, for example, demand, then the project can actually destroy company's value. So that's why you use only slightly or much greater than. So you need to use those much, slightly words. Skepticism is about your ability to look at the scenario and say that something is a little bit wrong about that. You get your skepticism marks for using the word however. That is a very important word. And if you see that you are given marks for skepticism, please make sure that you use the word. So, for example, however the company is listed. Well, for example, you are asked to explain whether return on capital employed is good or not good to be used as a performance metric for the company. And you will say that on one hand, return on capital employed is prone to accounting policies, for example, depreciation rates. So it can lead to manipulation and dysfunctional behavior. However, the company is listed and many professional investors look at that metric, so maybe this metric is supposed to be on the performance report. The company is owned by a family. And if a company is owned by a family, this means that the family relies on the dividend flow to that company. And that means that they cannot get into very risky projects, because if they lose, they will just be not able to afford their living anymore. Or, for example, company has cash problems, and if company has cash problems, maybe it will not be able to go and invest in some great opportunity. So even though that project seems to be more relevant for the company, still the company cannot go and deal with the project. You also need to talk about insufficient or not 100% relevant data. For example, you have customer satisfaction ratio, and you say that on one hand, it's a great ratio to use because if customers are satisfied, then they return, and this is what helps us to assess whether revenue will continue to grow in the future. On the other hand, customer satisfaction is prone to people's opinion, and so it's not a 100% sure metric. Or, for example, it's not 100% relevant to the company because customer satisfaction may be about the quality, it may be about the prices, it may be about service. So if this company wants to excel in, let's say, latest designs of fashion clothes, then customer satisfaction, the overall metric, may be not 100% relevant. Insufficient data, well, for example, the company has only this information, and maybe that's because that was the easiest information to retrieve from these systems. So the data is not enough, and maybe they need to work an extra mile and get some more data. Also, when we are going to learn how to answer question I, you will see how we deal with the mission. So you will need to say that mission is only partly measured by the proposed indicators. So you will need to say that this part of mission is not measured at all. And to measure the performance metrics measure mission in all aspects. And if they do, then maybe there are too many indicators, and that will lead to information overload. So let's say we have 6 most important aspects of our performance, and we get metrics for each and every part of that performance. And when you get the dashboard, which would measure everything and which provides the countermeasure, well, the one that helps you not to manipulate the performance, then you will get with a list of metrics that would be too big. And just in case, I will tell you something. There is an unofficial rule of 7. So if your performance dashboard has more than 7 indicators, then this means that there is a risk of information overload. Then the managers will look at so many indicators, and they will just not know which one is most important, which one is to aim for. And 7 is an unofficial number, so you need to think about it, but never write it that it's greater than 7. You just write that it's too many. Okay, skepticism is also about, well, the idea is great and the model is awesome, but, it's so really hard to implement, and the customers may not be happy with your ideas, and the managers may not be ready, or they may not be educated to change, or maybe just reluctant to change. For example, you want to introduce just-in-time manufacturing. And that's great because it will allow you to save costs. It will allow you to make your product faster and customers happier. But maybe employees are not ready to change, and they will just sabotage everything. So that's how you get your marks on skepticism. As for commercial knowledge, this is about your ability to decide the scenario. So look, when you just tell the theory, you do not get any marks. That's, for example, if you go to the doctor and the doctor tells you, okay, so here is the disease, and the doctor tells you everything about the disease, and it's basically whatever you could find on Wikipedia. And then the doctor says, okay, give me lots of money. Will you be happy? No, you will not, because you will say, well, you know what? I could have read about that on Wikipedia, but I want to know how that relates to me. But when the doctor would say, okay, you have a fever, this means that your body is fighting some infection, and you have some rash, this means that there's some skin infection, and you have that, and you have that. Well, this means that you have this disease, and this thing is something that will help you to find the disease. Well, if those symptoms are applied to you, if the doctor cites what the doctor sees in you, then you will feel it as a more personal touch, and you will be happy to pay money, more money. And ACCA wants you to be such specialist. So they want you to go to the company and say, okay, look, you're listed. This means that. You have cash problems. This means that. You have these threats on the market, and this means that. So you need to sign the scenario like Control-C, Control-V, and then you will need to tell what that means. And this actually is good for you when you learn how to do that. You will see that there is the answer to your question right in the scenario, and we will learn how to do that. You will need to identify industry specifics. Well, for example, if there is a car industry, they really rely on quality. If it's fashion industry, then it's fast changing. So what they need to do, they need to produce designs faster. And you will need to explain that. You will need to use one hand on the other hand, this two-handed accountant. So you will say, on one hand, the director is right to assume. On the other hand, the director is not right because of that. So it's not the task of the exam to give the answer this or that. The exam is about your ability to provide pros and cons, is about your ability to provide right thoughts. And the final answer may even be contradictory to the one the examiner gives you in the model answers, but if you use that on one hand, on the other hand, it may as well be that you score full mark on the question. And also, it is very important that if some suggestions were asked, then the suggestions are appropriate. So, for example, you do not offer a small family-owned company to go overseas because maybe they do not have management to do that. Maybe they do not have money to do that. Okay, so that is about professional marks. And this very video was introductory so that you keep in mind what we are going to do in the following questions. And I would really suggest you to go back to this video a little bit later when you already start practicing your questions, and to ensure that you understand each and every item on the list, because it is essential that you do. It is essential because you need to score not only technical marks, but also professional marks to get the pass rate, and also because quite often, if you do not score professional marks, you are just not able to score technical marks. Okay, well, I will see you in the next question, and it's in the next video, and it's very important that you will watch the video about how to answer question A, because this is where the majority of professional marks are. Okay, see you next.